Juli Martinez stared at her phone screen, her stomach dropping like she'd just stepped off a cliff in the dark. The little delivered notification mocked her from beneath the photo, a photo that was supposed to go to her best friend Carmen for a confidence check, not to whoever Marco Romano was in her contacts. She zoomed in with trembling fingers. There she was, in her favorite yellow sundress, the one that made her feel pretty on days when the world tried to convince her otherwise. Soft lighting from her bedroom window, a genuine smile she'd finally managed after weeks of feeling invisible, and that caption she'd typed as a joke, felt cute, might delete later, smiling face with smiling eyes, except now it was in the hands of a complete stranger. No, 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 she whispered, her voice climbing with each word. Her cat Luna looked up from the windowsill, ears flattened in concern. But let's rewind, because 20 minutes earlier, Juli Martinez had been having the absolute worst month of her 27 years on this planet. It started when her parents, the same parents who'd promised they'd try to come to her graduate school ceremony, called to say they couldn't make it. Again. Her younger brother's soccer tournament was the same day, and, you understand, Mija, this is his championship game. Juli had understood, the way she'd understood every missed birthday, every forgotten achievement, every time she came second to her golden boy brother. She'd stood in her tiny studio apartment in Queens, still in her barista uniform from the morning shift at Café Esperanza, and felt something inside her crack just a little bit more. It's fine, Mama, she'd said, voice steady even as her hands shook. I'll send you pictures. Her mother's relief had been palpable. You're such a good girl, Juli. So understanding. We'll celebrate later, okay? Later never came. It never did. Then her ex, Daniel, posted engagement photos. Him and the girl he'd sworn was just a study partner when Juli caught them having coffee together 4 months ago. They looked annoyingly perfect, her in a white dress, him looking at her like she hung the moon, when he'd never once looked at Juli that way in their 2 years together. Carmen had texted, girl, post something. Show him what he lost. You're gorgeous and he's out here settling for mediocre. Juli had laughed, but the seed was planted. Not to actually send anything to Daniel, she had more self-respect than that. But maybe just to remind herself that she was worth looking at. That someone, somewhere, might think she was beautiful. So she'd changed into the yellow sundress, let her dark curly hair fall loose around her shoulders, and angled her phone to catch the golden hour light. The photo was sweet, wholesome, nothing scandalous, just a girl who wanted to feel pretty for 5 seconds. She'd typed the message to Carmen, be honest, do I look like someone whose ex should be regretting his life choices? Yellow heart, except she didn't send it to Carmen. Her phone had auto-corrected to Marco Romano, a contact she didn't even remember adding. Maybe from that networking event last month? Or when she'd grabbed the wrong phone at the cafe during the lunch rush? The message delivered at 8:34 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Juli's first instinct was to unsend it, but her phone was 2 generations old and that feature didn't exist in her budget-friendly digital universe. Her second instinct was to move to Canada and start a completely new life under an assumed name. Instead, she did what any spiraling 27-year-old would do, she sent 6 follow-up messages in rapid succession. Oh my God, wrong person, I am so sorry, please delete that, this is mortifying, I meant to send this to my friend, please pretend you never saw this, I'm begging you, loudly crying face. Then she waited. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 5 minutes. Nothing. Maybe they were asleep. Maybe they'd already deleted it without looking. Maybe they were a decent human being who understood accidents happen. Juli exhaled slowly, setting her phone face down on her thrift store coffee table. It's fine, she told Luna, who had moved to the arm of the couch and was aggressively grooming herself. They probably don't even care. People send way worse things by accident. Her phone buzzed. She grabbed it so fast she nearly dropped it. The response was short, just 4 words that made her blood run cold, interesting choice of dress. Across the city in a sleek penthouse overlooking Central Park, Marco Romano set his phone down on the mahogany desk and returned his attention to the 5 men sitting across from him. The meeting had been tense, discussions about territorial agreements, supply routes, and the kind of business that never appeared on legitimate tax returns. These men represented interests from Chicago, interests that had been testing boundaries lately. When his phone had lit up with a notification, Marco had planned to ignore it. But his right-hand man, Vincent, standing by the door, had caught his eye and given the slightest nod, their signal for something requiring immediate attention. Marco had glanced at the screen. For the first time in 4 years, a genuine smile had threatened to break through his carefully maintained expression. The photo was unexpected, a beautiful woman with warm brown eyes and dimples, wearing a yellow sundress that seemed to capture sunshine itself. She looked real, unfiltered, genuinely happy in a way that felt rare in his world of calculated appearances. But it was the 6 panicked messages that followed that truly captured his attention. Raw, unfiltered terror in text form. The Chicago crew had noticed his distraction. Something amusing, Romano? Marco had locked his phone and slid it into his pocket, his face returning to its usual unreadable mask. Just business. Nothing that concerns you. But now, with the meeting concluded and the men gone, Marco pulled out his phone again. Vincent approached, curiosity evident despite his professionally neutral expression. Problem, boss? No, Marco said slowly, studying the photo again. The opposite, actually. He showed Vincent just the photo, not the messages. Vincent's eyebrows rose slightly, which for him was equivalent to shocked speechlessness. Should I be concerned about a security breach? Find out who she is, Marco said, his tone casual but his interest anything but. I want a full background by morning. Where she works, where she lives, who she associates with, everything. You think it's a setup? Vincent asked, immediately shifting into protection mode. Marco considered this. In his world, beautiful women didn't accidentally send sweet photos. They were weapons, carefully aimed by rivals or ambitious climbers looking to get close to power. But those 6 panicked messages, the raw, genuine embarrassment in them, that felt real. I don't think so, Marco said finally. But I've been wrong before. Check her out anyway. Vincent nodded and left, already making calls. Marco sat back in his leather chair, looking out at the glittering Manhattan skyline. He'd been in this business for 15 years, since he was 22 and his father handed him the family legacy along with all its blood and complications. In that time, he'd seen every play in the book. Seduction attempts, honey traps, betrayal disguised as romance. He'd learned to trust no one fully and to keep his heart locked away somewhere even he couldn't always find it. But something about this woman's panicked apologies felt different. Genuine. Human in a way his world rarely was anymore. He typed his response carefully, interesting choice of dress. Let her wonder. Let her worry. If this was a game, she'd make her next move. If it was truly an accident, well, accidents could be interesting too. His phone buzzed again almost immediately. I'm really sorry, Mr. Romano. I don't even know how I got your number. Please just delete the photo. I promise this won't happen again. Mr. Romano. So she at least knew his name even if she claimed not to know how she'd gotten his contact information. Marco allowed himself a small smile. This was either the worst infiltration attempt in history or the most entertaining accident he'd witnessed in years. Either way, he intended to find out which. Juli didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined worst-case scenarios. What if Romano was her landlord's son who'd sue her for harassment? What if they worked with her parents and would tell everyone? What if they were some kind of internet creep who'd post her photo online? By 3 a.m., she'd convinced herself that Romano was probably just some random person who'd think she was weird and move on with their life. By 6 a.m., when her alarm went off for her opening shift at Café Esperanza, she'd almost convinced herself the whole thing was a bad dream. The cafe was a small Puerto Rican place in Queens, family-owned for 2 generations, with the best café con leche in the neighborhood and a loyal crowd of regulars. Juli had worked there for 3 years while putting herself through grad school, and she loved it despite the early hours and occasional difficult customers. "You look like death," Carmen announced when she arrived for her shift an hour later. Carmen was Juli's best friend since high school, fierce, protective, with box braids she changed every month and the kind of confidence Juli wished she could bottle and sell. "Thanks. Super helpful. Seriously, what happened? You didn't answer any of my texts last night." "I did something monumentally stupid." "Hot date stupid or DUI stupid?" "I accidentally sent a photo to the wrong number and now I'm spiraling." Carmen's eyes went wide. "You did what? Show me. Now." "Absolutely not. Juliana Maria Martinez, you show me right now or I'm telling Mrs. Rodriguez you're the one who keeps using the expensive vanilla syrup." Juli groaned but pulled out her phone, showing Carmen the conversation. Carmen's expression went from amused to concerned to absolutely panicked. "Wait. M. Romano? As in Romano? What do you mean as in Romano? Do you know this person?" Carmen grabbed her arm, pulling her into the back room away from customers. "Please tell me you don't know who Marco Romano is." "I literally just said I don't know who this is." "Juli." Carmen's voice dropped to a whisper. "Marco Romano owns half of Manhattan. Real estate, restaurants, import businesses. My cousin's boyfriend works security at one of his properties, and he says," she lowered her voice even more, "he's connected. Like, family connected. Italian mob connected." The room tilted slightly. "You're joking." "I wish I was. He's like untouchable. Powerful. Dangerous. People don't mess with him." Juli felt her breakfast threatening to make a reappearance. "So I accidentally sent a cute selfie to a literal crime boss. It looks that way, yeah. I'm going to die. I'm actually going to die. They're going to find me in the East River and my parents will have to identify my body and they'll finally regret missing my graduation and," "Breathe," Carmen grabbed her shoulders. "Look," he responded, "right? And he didn't threaten you. That's good. Maybe he thought it was cute." Juli pulled up the message again. "Interesting choice of dress. That doesn't sound amused. That sounds like what mobsters say before they make you disappear. You watch too many movies." Before Juli could respond, the bell above the cafe door chimed. Through the window, she could see their manager, Miguel, frantically gesturing for them to come back to the front. They rushed out to find the morning rush in full swing, except everyone had gone eerily quiet. A man in an expensive charcoal suit stood at the counter. Tall, maybe late 30s, with dark hair and the kind of presence that commanded attention without demanding it. Everything about him screamed money and controlled power. "I'm looking for Juliana Martinez," he said, his voice professional and precise. Juli's feet rooted to the floor. Carmen subtly pushed her forward. That's me," Juli managed, her voice barely above a whisper. The man reached into his jacket, Juli's heart stopped, and pulled out a business card. "Mr. Romano requests your presence this evening. 7 p.m. The address is on the card." He placed it on the counter between them. "A car will be sent to your residence at 6:45. What? Why?" The man's expression didn't change. "I don't ask questions, Miss Martinez. I deliver messages. 7 p.m. I suggest you don't be late." Then he turned and walked out, leaving absolute silence in his wake. Juli stared at the card. Heavy cardstock, embossed lettering, Romano Enterprises with an address on the Upper East Side. "Well," Carmen whispered beside her, "at least you'll die in a nice building." Juli would have laughed if she wasn't absolutely terrified. But what happened next changed everything. The rest of Julie's shift passed in a blur of anxiety and dropped espresso cups, well, 2 dropped cups, but it felt like a metaphor for her entire life falling apart. Every customer who walked through the door made her jump. Every time her phone buzzed, she expected it to be a threat or a ransom demand or something equally terrifying. By 2 p.m., when her shift ended, she'd made exactly 3 decisions. 1. She was definitely going to this meeting, because ignoring a mob boss seemed like a worse idea than facing him. 2. She was telling at least 4 people where she'd be, so if she disappeared, someone would know to call the police. 3. She was wearing her most professional outfit, because clearly her current approach to clothing choices was getting her in trouble. You should wear something nice, Carmen argued as they walked to the subway together. If you're going out, go out looking good. I'm not going out. I'm potentially walking into a scene from The Godfather. Same dress code, honestly. Juli made it home by 3 p.m., which gave her 4 hours to completely spiral. She called her older sister, Rosa, who lived in Brooklyn with her wife and their daughter. So let me get this straight, Rosa said after Juli explained the situation. You accidentally sent a photo to the mob, and now you're meeting him for, what exactly? I have no idea. Maybe to apologize in person before he kills me? Juli, I love you, but your life is literally a telenovela mixed with a crime thriller. This isn't funny. It's a little funny. Look, text me the address and check in every 30 minutes. And for the love of God, don't drink anything he gives you until you see him drink it first. At 6 p.m., Juli stood in front of her closet in her underwear, having tried on and rejected 9 different outfits. Too casual, too formal, too much like she was trying too hard, not enough like she took this seriously. She finally settled on black pants, a cream blouse, and the blazer she'd bought for job interviews but never wore because it made her feel like she was playing dress-up in adult clothes. Her hair went up in a neat bun. Minimal makeup. Small gold earrings her abuela had given her for her quinceañera. She looked like someone who definitely hadn't sent an accidental selfie to a mob boss, because she was clearly a responsible, put-together adult. The lie helped, even if she didn't believe it. At 6:43, her phone buzzed. Car is downstairs. Juli grabbed her purse, gave Luna one last pat, whispered if I don't come back, you get all my stuff, and headed down to the street. The car was exactly what she expected, a sleek black SUV with tinted windows that screamed nothing illegal is happening here, please don't look too closely. The driver opened the back door. Same man from the cafe, still in his suit, still expressionless. Miss Martinez. Hi. Are you V? Vincent, he corrected, gesturing to the car. Shall we? Juli climbed in, her heart pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. The interior was all black leather and climate control. As they pulled into traffic, Juli realized she had no idea if she was being taken to a meeting or being kidnapped. So, she said, trying to keep her voice steady, do you do this often? Pick up terrified women for your boss? Vincent's eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. First time for this particular scenario, actually. That's not reassuring. Wasn't meant to be reassuring, Miss Martinez. It was meant to be honest. They drove in silence through Queens, across the bridge into Manhattan, and up through streets that got progressively fancier until they pulled up to a residential tower that looked like it cost more than Juli would make in 10 lifetimes. Vincent opened her door. Penthouse. He's expecting you. Juli stepped out onto the sidewalk, looking up at the building that seemed to stretch into the clouds. Any advice? He considered this. Don't lie to him. He respects honesty. And if I'm honest and he doesn't like what I say? Then it was nice knowing you, Miss Martinez. He was definitely joking. Probably. Juli walked into the lobby, gave her name to the doorman who was clearly expecting her, and stepped into an elevator with mirrors on all sides. She watched her reflection multiply into infinity, an army of nervous Julis all wondering how they'd ended up here. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse. And there, standing by floor-to-ceiling windows with his back to her, was Marco Romano. Marco had been called many things in his 37 years. Ruthless. Calculating. Cold. Dangerous. Untouchable. No one had ever called him curious. Curiosity was a weakness in his world, a crack that enemies could exploit. Yet here he was, curious about a barista who'd accidentally sent him a photo. When Vincent had delivered his report that morning, it had been disappointingly mundane. Juli Martinez, 27, born and raised in Queens. No criminal record, no connections to rival families, no debt beyond student loans. She worked at a cafe, had just finished her master's degree in social work, lived alone with a cat, and according to social media had recently broken up with a boyfriend who didn't deserve the angry paragraph she'd almost posted before deleting it. She's nobody, Vincent had concluded. Civilian. No connections. Which made the photo even more fascinating. In Marco's experience, beautiful women who wanted his attention tried much harder: designer clothes, strategic appearances at his restaurants, friends of friends introducing them at carefully orchestrated events. They didn't accidentally text him wholesome selfies and then panic apologize 6 times in a row. He'd spent the day in meetings, managing shipments, settling disputes, but his mind kept wandering back to Juli Martinez and her terrible luck with phone contacts. By 5 p.m., he'd made a decision that surprised even himself: he'd meet her. Not because he thought she was a threat, Vincent's report had been thorough, but because something about her chaotic authenticity intrigued him in a way nothing had in years. Now, standing by the window as the elevator announced her arrival, Marco composed his expression into something neutral. Not threatening, but not welcoming either. He heard her hesitant footsteps on the marble floor. "Mr. Romano?" Her voice was smaller than he'd expected, younger, uncertain. He turned. The photo hadn't done her justice. In person, Juli Martinez was striking: warm brown eyes currently wide with fear, sun-kissed skin, full lips pressed together nervously, dark curls escaping from her professional bun. She'd dressed conservatively, probably on purpose, but the outfit couldn't hide the fact that she was genuinely beautiful in an unpolished, real way his world rarely saw. "Miss Martinez. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice?" He smiled slightly. "There's always a choice. You chose not to ignore my invitation. That shows wisdom. Or terror. Sometimes they're the same thing. Smart." He gestured to the seating area. "Please, sit." She moved like she was walking toward an execution, perching on the edge of a cream-colored armchair as if ready to run at any moment. Her eyes darted around the penthouse, taking in the artwork, the furniture, the windows. Probably looking for exits. Smart girl. Marco sat across from her, deliberately casual. "Would you like something to drink? Water? Wine? Coffee?" "No, thank you. I'd rather just, why am I here?" Direct. He appreciated that. "You sent me something interesting yesterday." Her face flushed deep red. "I'm so sorry. It was an accident. A stupid, mortifying accident. I don't even know how I got your number." He held up a hand, stopping her. "I believe you." You do?" The 6 panic messages were fairly convincing. Either you're genuinely embarrassed, or you're the worst intelligence operative in history. A surprised laugh escaped her, quickly stifled. "Definitely the first one. Then we have no problem." He watched her shoulders relax slightly. "However, I am curious. The photo was meant for someone else?" "My best friend." I was going to ask if it was too much, or, she stopped, realizing she was over-explaining to a crime boss. "It doesn't matter. The point is, I've deleted it from my phone, and I hope you'll do the same." "Please." "Already done." Her surprise was evident. "Really?" I'm not in the habit of keeping photos of innocent women without their consent, Miss Martinez. Despite what you may have heard about me, I do have some principles. I haven't heard anything about you. The lie was obvious, but he let it pass. Then let me be clear. You're not in danger from me. You're not in trouble. You made an honest mistake, and as far as I'm concerned, this matter is closed. She stared at him like he'd grown a second head. That's it? You just wanted to meet me to say we're good? Not entirely. Marco stood, walking to the bar and pouring himself a scotch. I wanted to meet the woman brave enough, or foolish enough, to accidentally text a stranger and then apologize profusely instead of pretending it never happened. I'm not brave. I'm just bad with technology. Same result, sometimes. He took a sip of his drink. Tell me, Juli, may I call you Juli? She nodded, still looking confused. Tell me, Juli, do you know who I am? I have an idea. And yet you came anyway. Your driver said I didn't have a choice. Vincent says many things. You always have a choice. She stood then, some of her fear replaced by frustration. Okay, I'm confused. You bring me here, you tell me we're even, you're being nice. What's happening right now? Marco found himself genuinely smiling. What's happening is that you got my attention, Juli. Not many people do that anymore. I didn't mean to get your attention. The best things are never intentional. He set down his glass. I'd like to take you to dinner. Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. I'm sorry, what? Dinner. You and me. Somewhere public, if it makes you feel safer. Tomorrow night. You're asking me on a date. I'm asking you to dinner. Whether it's a date depends on whether you say yes. This is insane. You're you. And I'm a barista with student loans who lives with a cat named after a moon goddess. Luna, he said. Named after the Roman moon goddess. According to your social media, she's a grey tabby who hates everyone equally except you. The color drained from her face. You investigated me. Due diligence. Wouldn't you research someone before meeting them in a private penthouse? I didn't have time to research. I was too busy panicking. Marco stepped closer, not threatening, just closer. Juli, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to be honest. Yes, I looked into your background. It's what I do. And what I found was someone who works hard, just earned a master's degree while working full-time, takes care of her family, loves her friends, and has spectacularly bad luck with technology. And that makes you want to have dinner with me? That makes me want to know more about you. She shook her head, but he could see her resolve wavering. This is a terrible idea. Probably. You're dangerous. Definitely. I should say no. You should, he agreed. But you won't. Her eyes met his, and for a moment he saw the same woman from the photo, confident, genuine, unafraid. 8 o'clock, she said finally. Pick somewhere nice. And I'm ordering the most expensive thing on the menu just to make this worth my terror. Marco's smile was genuine this time. I wouldn't expect anything less. But as Juli left the penthouse, her mind spinning with what had just happened, neither she nor Marco could have predicted what would come next. Because across town, in a different penthouse, someone was watching security footage of Juli entering Marco Romano's building. Someone who'd been waiting for exactly this kind of opportunity. Someone who understood that the fastest way to bring down an untouchable man was to find the one thing he'd let himself care about. And Juli Martinez, with her accidental photo and her genuine smile, had just become the most valuable piece on a very dangerous chessboard. The game had begun. And Juli had no idea she was playing.